now what I want with Body Empowerment Project and what we want as Body Empowerment Project is to reach people before they get to that point. We know eating disorders are preventable illnesses,
right,
but we don't treat them that way. And so if we have a program that anybody can do that minimizes your risk factors, we're hoping that fewer and fewer people reach the point that they need that help.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Sean Tory. This is the Know Your Rights Camp podcast. We're here in Philadelphia for the next Know Your Rights Camp. We have our special guest who's going to be talking about physical health. We have here in the presence, Miss Clara Pritchett. How you doing, ma'am?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. And first of all, I have to say, you have a beautiful, extensive background, okay? And I want to make sure that people know about this. So Miss Clara is the executive director at Body Empowerment Project, holds a BA in Africana Studies from Brown University, where she developed a course on diet culture and fat-phobia. Fat-phobia?
Yep.
Fat-phobia. And her honors thesis examined the racial construction of the American obesity epidemic. Clara has worked with nonprofit organizations like NAAFA and DARE, focusing on body empowerment and social justice. A Philadelphia native from West Philadelphia, born and raised. And she is also passionate about giving back to her community and working in the city's public school system, where her academic knowledge and personal advocacy intersects with her professional experience. Ladies, gentlemen, everyone in the place to be, Philadelphia Know Your Rights Camp, Miss Clara Pritchett. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Man, I'm blessed. I'm thankful to have you here. So yes, please tell a little bit more. Is there a little bit more about you want to let the people know?
That was a pretty extensive bio. You got that right off our website.
Listen, I did what we can. I tried to add some more oomph to it.
Oh yeah, but no, as you said, West Philadelphia, born and raised.
Okay.
I am really passionate about both mental and public health. And when I went into Brown, I knew I wanted to do something to give back. I went in as an urban studies kind of poli-sci type person.
Okay.
And then I found the Africana department and I said, this is where I'm home. I had my own journey of trying to really think about my own mental health struggles, including my eating disorder. And when I got sent home during COVID, I graduated in 2022.
Okay.
It was my sophomore year of college. Thank you. I really knew that I could no longer fall into the same patterns and habits that I had my whole life with my eating disorder and mental health. And so I really dove into research, and that's where my course came out of. I ended up reading a book called Fearing the Black Body by Sabrina Strings. Highly recommend if you've never read it. And it examines the racial origins of fat-phobia, and I know we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. But I was really interested in how my own conceptions of my body were rooted in racism. And while I was studying Africana, while I was working at Direct Action for Rights and Equality, I was treating my own body in a way that was antithetical to everything I believed. And I was so angry.
Right.
It made me so angry because everything I read made so much sense, and I didn't know any of it. And I learned that there were a whole bunch of people who were interested in what I was interested in. So I ended up making my group independent study course called Diet Culture and Fat Phobia in the US.
Okay.
And it was me and 10 of my friends and a mentor who every Friday would sit on Zoom in our apartments during COVID and read all of this literature, from Sabrina Strings' book to Deshaun Harrison's Belly of the Beast, to really dive into the anti-diet movements from books by Christy Harrison and Aubrey Gordon, who's a fat justice activist. And then I turned that into my thesis. I was really interested in how, especially when I was a kid, how anti-obesity and weight loss was messaged to Black people as somehow a form of resistance. To continue the movement, you have to be healthy, and healthy always meant losing weight. And I was really fascinated by that when our concepts about fat people are rooted in anti-Black racism. So how do those things connect? And then I was lucky enough to find these two amazing people who were starting a nonprofit in Philadelphia called Body Empowerment Project, Christina and Amanda, shout you out. And they were looking at how we do eating disorder prevention, specifically in schools and specifically for people who have little access to care. And we met and we were talking about all that we were doing. And a day later, they said, Clara, we're looking to add to our team. Do you want to interview?
Right.
About 3 weeks later, I came out with a job. I was a senior in college, and then I graduated Memorial Day weekend 2022, and I started this job on June 1st, and I've been here ever since.
Ever since. So from your personal experience to a thesis and to now actually doing the work in the community, and you have a course, right, as well? Did you develop a course?
For Body Empowerment
For
Project.
Body, yes.
Yeah, so a little bit about Body Empowerment Project.
Thank you. I wanted to, I was just about to ask that. Okay, there you go. Go ahead.
Our mission is to reduce eating disorder risk and give students the skills to peacefully and healthily in their bodies through meaningful near-peer interactions. So the main thing we do is we have a 10-week program all about minimizing risk factors and building protective factors of eating disorders. So that looks like self-compassion, self-esteem, and also getting rid of thin ideal internalization and handling weight stigma. And so we cover topics like redefining health and health at every size. We talk about anti-fatness and body discrimination. We also talk about things that are more internal. We talk about body messages. What have you heard about your body and bodies from different aspects of your life? How do your identities impact how you see yourself, how others see you? We have a wonderful lesson developed by another org called Your Empowered Sexuality about consent and boundaries. We've done significant research on our program that shows that it clinically significantly decreases eating disorder risk and increases body appreciation among our participants. So over the past 3 years, we've worked with about 1,000 students. I'm getting ready to start. This semester programming, and over the next year, I think we'll reach about 700 students.
Come on. Put the love snaps. Put the love Jones snaps, please. Love Jones snaps. So how was your students' responses to the course? Since you worked over 1,000, what were their responses to the content?
So everybody's a little bit different. So we work with kids ages 10 to 18.
Okay.
And we take significant feedback from our participants. And so I have ones who tell me that they just find it as a space where they can come and be themselves. We have a lot of queer and gender nonconforming students as well, and they find safe spaces in our program. We have students who say that it just makes them a little, I think one of the things that came out of it was I have a teacher who talked to a news source, and the one thing she was saying is that her students are just nicer to each other after the program. Even students who have had histories in the past where maybe they've not gotten along, we help build community.
Right.
And then based on the risk factors and protective factors we're working on, we have upwards of 80% of students say that their body image improved as a result of the program. About 86% said their self-esteem improved as a result of the program. Again, upwards of 85% say they've learned to love themselves more as a result of the program. And so that's the feedback that we're getting from our participants. And we also have a lot of students who do the program again and again. I have people who, every group is a little bit different, and so they want to engage with the material, engage with new people, and see what it has to offer. And then we also offer leadership positions for our folks who are really interested in the program. So we have student ambassadors who help us recruit and help recruit students to the program and help us manage the program with their peers, and also will help manage lessons for them as well so they can teach the people who are just younger than them.
Now, I can tell you do really love this program. I love the work you do.
There is nothing I love more than this program. I know that if I had this program when I was in high school or middle school, it would have saved myself a lot of pain and a lot of hurt and a lot of health problems that I still live with as a result of an eating disorder, because they often stay with you for your life.
And I'm glad you actually get to that point, because the next question, I want to go deeper into that if you don't mind. So you definitely mentioned your own struggles, and it turned into this passion for you to do not only just your personal work, but also the work for the community and all the students you work with. So the question I have is, with eating disorders and the presentation and everything that you got going, what were the steps you took to not only face your issues but help others?
I think for myself, I think a lot of the content, especially as it dealt with things like body positivity, I never saw myself represented. And so even there are some books about eating disorders, and there are some content creators who talk about eating disorders, and especially when I was in high school, 2014 to 2017, there was nobody who looked like me.
Right.
There was no one who was Black, there was no one who was curvier, and I think when I started, what was extra important to me is when I started to look at it from the lens of a system of oppression rather than my own individual struggles. Because that resonated with me more than anything else, more than believing that I should love my body just to love it. But my body is also a representation of centuries of people who have come before me and fought for the rights that I have today. And I think that that was key. And it doesn't mean that I don't go through every day, like having to choose recovery and having to choose to be different. And I know that's not possible for everybody. I was lucky enough to get help at a critical time. Was able to get into therapy at 18, and that was key to being able to handle my mental health and my eating disorder. And so now what I want with Body Empowerment Project and what we want as Body Empowerment Project is to reach people before they get to that point. We know eating disorders are preventable illnesses, but we don't treat them that way. And so if we have a program that anybody can do that minimizes your risk factors, we're hoping that fewer and fewer people reach the point that they need that help.
Gotcha. So with the work that you're doing there, and not only just also from the personal life and the work you're doing with your organization, how do you communicate the results of like, hey, how do you show that history to all your students?
I think what's been interesting, and I get the question a lot of like, do your students actually understand what you're saying?
What you're
and
saying, yeah.
I know that my students cannot digest fearing the black body in the same way that I could as a college student.
Right.
But what I get from all of them is they all have these experiences and stories that they just need the language to share. And they have experiences in the doctor's office that they want to talk about. They have experiences with body-based bullying that they want to talk about. And so just giving them the space to do so and helping them formulate that language is super important.
Right.
And so there are ways, as we find with talking about systems of oppression at all ages, there's language that is understandable. And I think what I say to students, especially younger students, is I'm like, have you ever made a joke about somebody's body? Has anybody ever made a joke about yours? How does that make you feel? And then we talk about broader. Do you think that some people are treated differently in the world because of how they look? Where do you see that? And then sometimes I'll ask plainly, like, when you go into a clothing store, do those clothes fit everybody?
No.
And they're like, no.
I still struggle with the pants.
And so many people do. Because most people in this country are classified as overweight or obese, which is not language that I use often, but if we're going by the medical classifications. And most clothes in stores don't fit those people.
No,
so
they don't.
It doesn't make any sense. And so, and I say them too, sometimes I'll tell them harsher things, and I'll say, like, do you know that legally on a lot of airlines, a flight attendant can kick someone off a plane just because they might look uncomfortable? And I think they're really interested in those things. And they're real world experiences that they understand, and maybe they don't understand all of the history behind it or all of the nuances to it, but they understand that. And I think that's really important. And there are lots of orgs too, but as well as the National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance or the Association for Size Diversity and Health that have resources for younger kids. And they're out there. Right. You just have to find them.
So with those other organizations that you collaborate with and the work and others you've worked with, like NAAFA and DARE, how has your experience with these groups influenced your approach for Body Empowerment Project?
I worked at DARE, Direct Action for Rights and Equality, not the DARE that you might know.
Please clarify.
I always
not
say,
the DARE
like,
from back in the day
not the DARE from back in the day.
with the little tiger. I think that's what it was, or lion, one of those. Got you. Yeah. Okay, not DARE.
DARE is a wonderful grassroots organization in Providence, Rhode Island, where I went to college.
Okay.
And I was placed there through a fellowship at Brown. And at DARE was where I learned how a nonprofit works.
Right.
It's where I learned what grant writing was. It's where I learned how to build a donor base and how to organize a community. And those are skills that are invaluable to the work I do today. And then I think as working with the folks at NAFA, who I didn't work with as extensively, but their chair, Tigers Osborne, is a huge inspiration to me. I reached out to NAFA when I was doing my course, and I kind of cold emailed everybody on my syllabus, and I was like, hey, would you like to come speak to my class? And while I was developing my class, I got a little bit of pushback.
Right.
And I as I was doing it, I learned there was this whole community of people who were interested in what I was interested in. And they all were so ready to help me. And I think that's the biggest thing I also learned, is that there is a community of backing that I have, that no matter what other pushback I get, they are there for me.
Gotcha.
And that's so important.
Okay. So as a West Philadelphia native, what motivates you to give back to your community, particularly through your work in the public school system? What's that motivation?
My family's been in Philly for a long time, centuries.
Man,
And we have strong roots here. And I always knew I was going to come back. Even in high school, I was like, okay, I might go to college, but I know I'm going to come back, and I know I'm going to work for the community. I think both of my grandparents on my dad's side, were high school teachers. And I saw the difference that they made. I still see, my grandmother is 88 years old, and people walk up to her on the street, and they're like, Miss Tucker, which is her maiden name.
Not the maiden name.
She hasn't had that name since the 50s or 60s, and they still remember her.
So not only her, your grandfather too, right?
My grandfather too.
I heard your grandfather is a member of Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Is that correct?
Yes, he was.
Oh, he's a great man. All right, I knew it. Selfish plug. Ha, Colin. Anyway.
Temple University.
Not for herself, for sure.
And then my mom was also a high school teacher in public schools. My dad is also an educator.
Oh, see, education is all through your blood. Okay.
Yes, education is definitely through my blood, and I knew how important teachers were. And so I think what I do is very specific, and I'm not a teacher in the traditional sense, but I love what I do because I get to be another resource for students.
Love that.
And I get to bring something else and bring something new. And all of our programming is run by 18 to 25-year-olds. And so we use a near-peer mentorship model. And that's so important, too, for students to see people who are just a little bit older than them, who can relate to them in ways that maybe some of their teachers can't. Maybe some of them can. I have friends who are teachers who are my age. But the city has given me and my family so much. And I was taught as a kid that how important it was to give back, and like, this is the way that I do that. And I want the students that I work with to not go through the same things that I went through, or some of my friends went through, who are in this community of lived experience with me. And that motivates me every day. And so even in the position I'm in now, I still run a group. I always do. Because no matter what I'm doing, no matter like what grant I'm writing, no matter who I'm talking to, they keep me grounded. And so every week I go to a school and I hang out with the kids and I teach the program, and I find that so important.
So with that being said about what you do in the community, for the Know Your Rights Camp here in Philly, what are you looking to bring to our students? How are you going to get them energized? How do you get them see the importance of public health and just really looking at themselves in the mirror and not being shameful? How are you going to do that to our youth? How are you going to make that impact?
I really want to give them kind of a starting point. We're going to talk about health equity in my presentation, and I want to give them some initial language and some initial examples of historical health inequities, how they see them today, and then how we fight back. And then I want to leave them with some materials that they can take forward into their own communities. Only got 20 minutes? I can use 20 minutes, and I know that they'll get something out of it.
Man, you're going to make sure they're going to feel it.
Yes.
I know you're going to bring it. So, man, Ms. Clara, thank you so much for coming on to our podcast.
Thank you.
We deeply appreciate you. We want to show you that we truly value the work that you're doing, and I'm glad that they have you here at the camp, and I'm glad that you're about to encourage, engage, and empower these young folks to make sure to take a better look at not just themselves and love who they are already. So I want to thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And ladies, gentlemen, everyone there, thank you so much for tapping in to the Know Your Rights Camp podcast. If you want to follow us on all our social handles, especially Instagram, Your Rights Camp. And if you want to make sure you see us on our YouTube channel, go to Know Your Rights Camp. And then if you want to make sure you hit our website for a donation, knowyourrightscamp.org. We'll see you next time. Thank you.